Wow, I don't know what to say, but I will just go right in and directly to this next episode. Welcome to the Mise-en-Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to clash. Like Vietnam should still be segmented for reasons unbeknownst to us all. So this week's episode is focused on Vietnam War movies, and only the two best ones at that. With Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket donning their military boots and trudging through the mud of our own commentary. Come join Jonathan and Steven and songs that we may randomly play for another week of desirably less plot chatter and hopefully more film banter. We are Scene Weekly, and welcome to our world that it's pornographic to some extent.
I mean, it's Two Live Crew.
Here we are.
It's Two Live Crew.
It is, and I first learned. When's the first time you ever heard a Two Live Crew song? Do you recall?
I don't know. I mean, they were before my time, but I do recall that song.
So I do. I remember very distinctly because I had gone to my parents were together until I was 8, and then we had $0 in the bank to continue going to private school, which is not a great private school. Well, I shouldn't ask about it, but Ocala, Florida doesn't have the best private schools. Let's just put it out there. And I went into public school in 5th grade, and it was a big change. And so like Two Live Crew was quite prevalent in my public school. And I was like, what is this? And I was honestly, I was like, this is the greatest shit I've ever heard in my life. And it was pretty much the only, I think I talked about it last week, where I couldn't buy CDs that were of the secular nature. And so like anytime going to school, I would just listen to other people's like Walkmans and stuff. But Two Live Crew, like it was a life-changing moment. 5th grade was the first.
That's the kind of the complete opposite of me, because I went to public school all the way up until 5th grade, and then I started going to private school from 5th grade to 11th grade, and then transferred my senior year and went to a public school to finish out. So, but I wasn't. I wasn't jamming to Two Live Crew in 4th grade. No, I was actually listening to Green Day Dookie. That was my jam back in the early days.
I listened to that was 7th grade for me. I believe it came out in 7th grade, so that would have been back in 1993, 92, something like that. But yeah, that was an interesting time as well. But I couldn't buy the CDs. I didn't have enough money, but then I had to listen to them for people at school. But nonetheless, we're here talking about Vietnam. We've gone through, God, on the back end of this, trying to have a discussion on what we're going to be choosing here.
It's actually quite easy when you think about it. Like, we kind of ended up on the two obvious choices, but I was kind of under the impression like, oh, let's pick a movie that maybe you haven't seen or I haven't seen. But when it comes down to it, we got to pick these two films.
Yep. So I was right out the gate in my head. I thought clearly we are going to go the path of least resistance, and then I always know the process with you now. I mean, this is episode 16. That cute is probably your first name, or at least at minimal your middle name. It is a part of your name, though.
I go by my middle name, so
I know that's very true. And so but for the majority of your life, you didn't actually. Steve was shortened. But I didn't think we were going to get to this point. So you were choosing these movies. First of all, I'd never even heard of or even watched. Would you like to discuss what you had chosen?
Yeah, the first inclination of mine, because I watched it recently, was Casualties of War, which is a Brian De Palma starring Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox. And it's a heavy watch because obviously any kind of Vietnam War movie can be, but that one specifically deals with
casualties.
Rape and the casualties of war and what happens, not just the war, not just the people that are fighting the war, but the people that are living in the country and have to endure the presence of troops and things like that. So that was my first pick. And then I think you wanted to do Deer Hunter, and we had Platoon in
Well,
mind.
hey, wait. So Full Metal Jacket was my go to, primarily because I knew that yours was going to be Apocalypse Now if we ever went this path. And we'll get into the scoring of them, but much later. But like I just thought, because I like Kubrick a lot, and I just felt you and I kind of tend to already know to some extent what the other person is probably going to be choosing. And I just thought for sure you'd be choosing Apocalypse Now, so I just automatically went Full Metal Jacket. Was that your rationale? You would always want Apocalypse Now, or you just chose that because I chose Full Metal?
No, I have a history with Apocalypse Now, going all the way back to my film study days. And I remember specifically when I was in film school at Georgia State, we had a big event coming up, and it was Francis Ford Coppola coming to. He went around to like different cities and different colleges and did
Yeah,
speaking appearances, and we got tickets to that. And he was talking about his new film that was coming up called Youth Without Youth, but he was also asking, taking questions from the audience and things like that. And a lot of the questions were about Apocalypse Now. And
yeah.
me being still young into my film career, I hadn't seen Apocalypse Now, so I was like, I gotta check this out. I gotta see it. And I
Wait,
mean,
you
it
didn't see it until film school?
not until film school. No,
Are you sure about that?
pretty sure. Yeah. If I had seen it
Question that.
before, I didn't understand the magnitude and the themes involved when if I saw it when I was like 16 or
Sure.
17. You know what I mean?
I
Um,
was just thinking it because I definitely saw it. I thought when I knew you, and before you went to film school, that is. But nonetheless, terrific movie. But I thought immediately you're going to be choosing Apocalypse Now. I chose Kubrick. I've seen both way too many times. Sometimes I think I'm just going to go into these like conversations without watching the movies because I'm like I know these like intimately. But I carve out the time and I make it for you, old Steven.
I mean, you got a wife, you got kids, you got a full
And
slate.
I have Francis Ford Coppola's wine.
Wait, that's an interesting label, Jonathan. That looks like
What do you mean? This is
maybe
what came
is that a single vineyard like that he didn't release only to
to me,
people
only to
in
me.
only to you.
Yeah, yeah, that's me. So I figured, while we're, you know what, I was thinking Full Metal Jacket might work better as a first introductory to war, but I would actually let's flip that script. You want to go first? I think that would probably be
I
the
think
best
you're
option
putting it
here.
on me to go first, but yeah, sure.
Because no, I thought immediately, of course, opening the wine. Well, I thought about it like this: do I open the wine when I start? And then I was like, I've got 30 minutes of drinking wine now, like opposed to an hour and a half. And I'm like, I should probably open this now, which in essence, you're forced to go, which is lovely.
I like that. Let's get you good and good and a little bit wine drunk by the time you have to start talking about Full Metal Jacket. Like that sounds like
Yeah.
a
And
great
then
idea.
complete, completely confused as to what's going on and where am I? How did I get here? I thought I came to watch a movie, but nonetheless. Um, so yeah, we went through a lot of derivations. I wanted Full Metal Jacket. You chose Off the Reservation, and I was trying to match your energy. And I was like, I just am not feeling this. Like Deer, there's this one scene in Deer Hunter that really affected me in a terrible way because movies should not do this to you. You should be objective, and you should just like this should never happen to you people that are watching this. I'm telling myself as well. It's just like he's literally a deer. He's literally a deer hunter hunting deer, but he's not hunting deer. If you, I'm a deer hunter more than Mr. Robert over there. Like he's just not hunting deer in like no one would hunt deer in the way that it's shown on screen. Clearly, nobody, not even. I mean, Google didn't exist at the time, but like he literally could have talked to any hunter in the world, and they would have said, "You have to correct all of this." And it just every time I watch it, it just sits with me. I'm like, this is so stupid.
Maybe they
But
didn't
that
have
shouldn't
they didn't have another budget to get a hunter on set.
really. Have you
Maybe
seen the cast? Have you seen the
that's
cast?
true.
It's
That's true.
outrageous. It's wild. Anyway, the point
They
is
should
this:
have they should have hired you.
I was not alive, so that's an impossibility, and then I wouldn't even have hunted by then. But nonetheless, if I had a time machine, but here we are. I'm drinking nice Francis Ford Coppola. Ooh, don't do this, people's little little water stains on the old wine glass here. There's a sommelier who's holding it incorrectly. Shouldn't be
Yeah,
doing
hold it
this.
by the stem. You don't want to warm that wine with your hands. Uh, what's your thoughts on
Hmm.
war, Jonathan? Where do you stand?
I don't know. What is it good for, really? You
And
know,
what is it good for?
I how do I start? Sebastian Junger has a book called Tribe that I think probably best explains why people go to war or why there are tribes and why we are tribalistic. And I think it's a difficult, nuanced discussion that would take the entirety of this hour and a half that we have together. And I think it's going to be wasteful, but in a simple, encapsulated point, it's useful from time to time. And because I think humans are fairly stupid and can't communicate in our heart of hearts as well as we anticipate. And then ultimately,
Yeah.
they add in some pride, and you add in some pride of your country, and then you add in some lack of humility, and people go to war. And I think when you get to that stage, it's most likely the only time there's no turning back. And so it's something that's easily repeatable that we've done for forever.
I'll go.
But
I'll go to
I
a
don't
more
think it's good.
yes. I'll go to a more general question. Why do you think there has been, and especially this time frame between like 1975 and 19 early 90s, why was there so many Vietnam War films coming out? What do you think the reason is behind that?
Oh, because there's people coming back from World War II is pretty simple. People coming back from Vietnam, like the far left, is not embracing the entire country is not embracing the Vietnam War, is also not embracing the people coming back. So you have multiples of situations where interaction is poor or it could be better. And so when there's conflict, there's always it's ripe for film, I would say. Without conflict, there is no film. I would highly, I don't know if this is taught as a film major for yourself, but like that seems like a catchphrase that I would say if I were a teacher. Without conflict, there is no film. And so I think there's so much disagreement about Vietnam, and like even people at the end, everyone was pretty much in agreement that this was a terrible war and that we shouldn't have been in that to begin with. And I think that there was so much conflict on the front at home, the front away, even the military that actually were landed there. Nobody really agreed on being there to begin with. I mean, my father was actually in the Vietnam War, although he was some like computer geek, but he also like I don't know. He like anyway, not to go into father issues, but like brags about it like to other people. He like wore his Vietnam hat and went to like one what is it? One tower? One anyway, in New York. And somebody didn't say thank you for your service and he got offended by that. I'm like, this is a very strange concept. But nonetheless, conflict. Without conflict there is no war. And
And there was a lot of
I think
conflict in Vietnam.
there was a
Yeah.
substantive amount of conflict. There was also a extreme substantive amount of issues that preceded the Vietnam War internally in terms of the civil rights movement. And so like there was a clashing of culture, there was a clashing of country, there was a clashing of mind bending drugs at the exact same time. And so when you have a lot of mind bending drugs and the potential for war and a civil rights movement all at the same time, and the Beatles are, it's a wild time to be alive. And I think it creates an amazing amount of conflict. In essence, that's why I think there's different angles to take. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we got two great
They
angles here with Apocalypse Now and Full Metal Jacket. Like this is two titans of the industry and
segue.
segue. Um, but yeah, this was a interesting week of watching these two films because I haven't seen them in a long time, and
Really?
also yeah, following up with like doing
Huh.
some like more or less heavy Google research and watching a little known documentary called Hearts of Darkness helped me contextualize a lot more of what I was watching and what I was seeing.
I think this is a podcast episode that I'm going to get to the end of it and think I wish I would have said that. Like kind of when you're in an argument with a spouse or a girlfriend and like there's like three things that come into your head hours after, and like, God damn it, I wish I would have said this.
Yeah.
I feel like this
Yeah.
is what's going to happen to me. There's just I for your movie Apocalypse Now, I wrote too many things down, like way too many things, and I there's no way we can cover it. But I think there's so much to unpack. People teach courses on this your movie alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, we can't really pack these two films together in the podcast length that it deserves, because this would take hours and hours. But nonetheless, let's get into it. I am taking up Apocalypse Now. This is a 1979 Vietnam War film directed by your wine says it all, Francis Ford Coppola. It stars Martin Sheen, Robert Duvall, Dennis Hopper, Marlon Brando, Lawrence Fishburne. Has a budget $31 million, and this budget was put up mainly by Francis Ford Coppola because no studio wanted to really touch this film. But it walked away with a big box office of $104.8 million. Quick synopsis of Apocalypse Now if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, I urge you to do so.
stop
Apocalypse
what you're
Now,
watching right now.
yeah, stop what you're watching right now and maybe eat some mushrooms and watch Apocalypse Now. So Apocalypse Now is a Vietnam War film. We meet Captain Willard, who is tasked with a top secret mission. He is informed of a rogue colonel, Colonel Kurtz, upriver, operating the war without permission or oversight. Willard is to travel to Colonel Kurtz and terminate his command with extreme prejudice.
Prejudice.
Willard travels up the river, and he encounters many people, many sights, and the madness. He descends slowly into the madness of war.
I
What a
love
film!
What a film. I love it, the line extreme prejudice. It's like
It's a great line.
it's like two words that are so there's so much to unpack there that
Yeah.
it's lit like you can picture, I don't know, like a picture is worth 1,000 words or whatever. There's 1,000 words to describe exactly what's going to be needed from old one Martin Sheen, which but overall, like, I don't think I know of another movie, at least off the top of my head. I'm just thinking about this on the fly, but like, I don't think I know another movie like this where it's so meaningful, but at the same time, what's your like? I honestly still think there's more to unpack after seeing this for like 15 to 20 times or however many times I've seen it. And I just think that every single time I watch it, I catch different things, but it's more of like a reiteration. But like, Francis and the crew definitely hit upon some deep-seated notion of war and what it means to, I guess, humanity to watch it unplay. I mean, he shot 200 hours of film for this movie, which is wild.
Insane. I mean, I feel bad for the editor in that regard, because that's
Yeah,
that's a lot to sort through, a lot to go through. But
he shot it blind too. Like they couldn't process the film until he got back to America.
oh wow, that's just like
Well, in the Philippines,
mainly you get to watch these dailies and see kind of what you shot, and go over it, and be like, we got this, we got that.
Could you
This is
imagine?
good. No,
No.
that's
So think about it like this: like, could you imagine that you to shoot the 200 hours of the film? I mean, they went from shooting, was it 6 weeks to like
yeah, I think it was
years,
like 6 weeks, and it turned into 16
months or
months.
something. Yeah, which is awful, and that's why Dennis Hopper was getting high every day. But nonetheless, I digress. Anyway, great movie. There's not another movie like this for me. It's touching, crazy. It takes you to places that are uncomfortable but are fantastic, which I think actually both films do. But
Yeah.
but fantastic overall film.
And this movie, I mean, as for like far as a synopsis and like telling you what this movie is about, it's very straightforward. You have a
Yeah,
captain,
simple.
he's got a mission, he's got to go downriver, he's got to, you know, confront the colonel. But what
Guys, yeah,
what you have along the way is like, it's almost like a series of vignettes, a series of like little short vignettes of what he has to go through as he is descending up the river. And like I said, into this war of madness. It's incredible. You kind of start even that
War
opening
of Madness. That's
yeah,
fantastic, Stephen. Yeah,
that first shot I mean, they talk about this in film school of just the sound design, the cinematography, the crossfading between, and having the doors being played. This is the end, and hearing the helicopter sound,
Yeah.
and then seeing the ceiling fan, and then overlaying Willard's face, and you're just pulled into his world, right? He has been in the war for a while. He's been on some pretty awful missions, covert missions, and he already has this. They don't have the term back then, but PTSD. He's got it hard. He's in a room drinking himself to almost death, punching a mirror, bleeding, and it's rough. It's rough for Willard.
Did you hear about the backstory to that scene where, I mean, I'm sure you have in terms of like your Googling, but like it's,
Oh, I watched the documentary Hearts of
I,
Darkness, and I
yeah,
mean, it goes into detail. It was his 36th birthday, and
yeah,
they got him good and drunk. Like this is no acting really. This is like him
yeah,
just being he was already an alcoholic at the time. We can talk about what
yeah.
happened in the film later on, but he punched that mirror and they kept filming. It was like one of those
Which
things,
was
just
ad
like
libbed. Yeah,
is ad libbed. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it truly kind of, like when they say like in English class when you're like writing a story or a paper, like kind of really like get the attention of the reader right away.
yeah.
Uh, this is a
That's it.
movie that
Yeah,
just does that, right?
yeah.
You're like, okay, what am I going to be watching here? Um, yeah, Willard gets
The
summoned. Go ahead.
the intro, I want to like go back to that because I believe it's still to this day the Doors. Well, I should say this. I know this for a fact. It was the first movie that they ever lent their music out to. Um, and I don't know if maybe they've done a commercial or two. I feel like I've seen a Doors commercial, but like they don't allow music to be utilized in this capacity. But they were presented with this opportunity, and they were like, "We'll do it," which is like, what other song is more It's just like it's a top. I can't even think of something that competes with this, but it might be my favorite opening to a film ever. Like full stop. Like I don't know. Maybe I would have to really dig deep to find something that's better than this, but all of it is an ideal situation.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And Martin Sheen went to have a heart attack on the set of this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
just the
crazy.
fact that originally, let's kind of back up here before we get into the meats and the meat and potatoes here. But this film was originally going to be made by Orson Welles back in the day. The
Yeah,
book, they kind of mapped it out. We're going to base this off of the book Heart of Darkness. Obviously, it couldn't have been based on Vietnam because that hadn't happened yet. But it was logistically impossible at the time in the 30s to do that. So they passed on it. He made another film called Citizen Kane.
never
I'm
heard
sure
of it.
you've heard of it. Yeah, no, well,
No.
check it out. And then this hadn't been a script written yet, but the writer of this film, John Milieu, right? Am I saying that
I don't know
correctly?
actually. Yeah,
Anyways, his teacher in film class kind of prompted their students. He's like, I want you to try and write a script for something that can't be written into a script. Like it's been tried before, but it can't. And he's like, I'll take that challenge. And he took the book Heart of Darkness and put it on Vietnam War themes, and he made it. And originally George Lucas was going to do it, and then Francis Ford Coppola wanted to do it, but no studio would give him money. So he made a couple of films, Godfather and Godfather Part Two, that
never heard of them.
we'll talk about it one day. That's just cemented his legacy, and he he crazy Francis Ford Coppola decided to put up the money of his own to even put his house up against it to mortgage that and get the funds to make this movie. Um, I mean,
So
that's just some
I thought he raised money and then he actually put up the last 7 million because nobody would like give
correct.
him extra money, and then he
Yeah,
put up his house and his winery, and like I wouldn't be drinking his lovely wine as of now if this wasn't that successful. Um, but overall, just there's so many stories that in I mean, this is your movie, not mine, but like there's so many stories that are just so interesting on the back, just the shooting of the movie and like the movement of the movie, and the quotes of the movie. There's not often movies. Well, I mean, maybe, but there's not often we get to chat about something that is like so complete and complex as Apocalypse Now, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the scope of this film, like thinking about, well, at first they were going to actually go and film this while the Vietnam War was happening in Vietnam on 16 millimeter, and the studios were
Wait,
like, no,
what?
yeah,
I had no idea of this. What? Whose
yeah,
idea was this? They were just going to go into the like Vietnam War and say, "We're filming, guys. Don't like what? How does that work?" So like that's
yeah, exactly. There would have been
pause.
probably
No, not real. These are fake guys over here. They're actors and actors. Like what? This is
yeah, it's
outrageous.
insane. Insane. That's what they wanted to do at first. And the studio's
Well,
like, absolutely not.
yeah.
Um, and so they waited. He got some money, and then they settled on the Philippines. They wanted to get the U.S. to support them in supplying like tanks and helicopters and things like that, but the U.S. was like, "No, absolutely not. This sounds like an anti-war film. Blah blah. Blah. We're
Yeah,
not going to do
yeah.
that." And so Francis Ford Coppola got cozy with the dictator of the Philippines, Marcos, and he kind of wined and dined him and let him agree to using the Philippine war helicopters. Like it's insane. It's
That's
insane.
crazy. It's just yeah, there's so many insane stories behind it, but I can't imagine being an actor on set for this. It just seems like horrible. Like every single day would be a just terrible, terrible event.
I
Hot,
mean,
sweaty, people like just disgruntled humans, an alcoholic.
lots of
Dennis
drugs.
Hopper. Dennis Hopper is quite literally is like higher than like space. And like there's so many like there's conversations that I'm sure you've seen like the Dennis Hopper and like Francis Ford Coppola like
Oh
he's
yeah,
trying to like
coach him
finagle
through
the
the
cast.
lines and say, yeah, yeah.
And that dude is higher than anything I've ever seen in my life.
But you know
Must be
what?
difficult.
It works.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, totally.
it works to perfection. This is a film that should never, like, it shouldn't have been completed. It shouldn't have been made, but we have it and we can enjoy it for what it is. It only won 2 Oscars, by the way. Do you know which those 2 Oscars were for?
No, I didn't look at. It's funny. I didn't look at either of those up for both films.
Do you want to guess?
I would say like sound.
Sound design, yep.
I don't know the second. Yeah,
Cinematography. So those are the 2
it's
Oscars that
pretty
they
good.
won. Yeah, and this is coming off the heels. You know, The Godfather and Godfather Part 2 both won Best Picture. I don't think maybe the Academy was like, we got to give it to somebody else like this.
Who got it that year?
You know what? That's a good question. 1979. I don't know. I can ask Jamie. It's our assistant Jamie.
Red Band. Red
Yeah.
Band. You got it.
But yeah, this film is incredible. I'll go back to that.
You don't have to do it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go back to the beginning of this. Like I said, Willard is getting summoned. He goes into the officer's quarters, which looks like a grandmother's house dining room set. But everything, like, it's funny because like a lot of these things that the officers and things like that, they're trying to recreate home in a foreign country. They're trying to
Yeah.
create all of these, like, whether it's, you know, the food that they eat or the setup of like that little trailer to what happens when, you know, you go out to the battlefield. But did you notice, I mean, I'm sure you did, the actor that was in there that had like 2 lines?
Which one? Who
Harrison
in the
Ford.
trailer?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, G. Lucas. You mean?
Yeah, G. Lucas, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
So
it was
he
it
he
was one
he
of his
got
first
tipped.
film role. No.
Yeah, yeah. His second, I believe, if memory serves. But like, G. Lucas gave him a George Lucas, good friend, gave him a film role before this. So that's why he wanted to be called G. Lucas. They gave him the option of choosing his own name. He
Oh, that's what he
chose,
came up with.
yeah, yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. I love that.
But he's
Uh,
fantastic. I think in terms of homeliness and the environment of home, having Harrison Ford in any film will make it more home like. It'll feel like
that's
home.
true.
He
That's
feels
true.
like a good father figure. But with extreme prejudice,
Yeah, he has to go
Captain
find.
Willard has got to do some damage.
So he gets put on a little boat with a few others. You got Clean, you got the Lance, the surfer, you got Lawrence Fishburne.
Who's
Um,
14 or was 14 as of the audition.
yeah, he lied about his age in that to get
Wild.
that part. Uh, pre- it's just amazing that at 14 he gets cast in this role, but he little did they know he'd be a major actor moving forward throughout all the years. It's great cast. My favorite early, I guess, scene in character in the film is Kilgore, played by Robert Duvall. Now, I think it's really important that they have this meeting and this interaction with Kilgore, because he is kind of like the the opposite of Colonel Kurtz. He is a man that can, just as Kurtz, can control his Marines and lead, but he leads in a very different way. He leads in a way that is trying to bring America to
Surfing back
Vietnam.
to Vietnam,
Yeah,
because
surfing
that appears, at least initially, to be his number one concern.
is
Like
number one concern.
surfing, yeah.
When he
War,
when he fi-
not so much.
when he finds out that on that boat with Willard is a local California surf legend in Lance, he drops everything. He's even drops a canteen of water that he was giving to a dead Viet Cong, and he's like, "Oh, Lance is here. I gotta meet him."
Dude,
Um,
every
Amazing.
single time I watch that scene, I mean, it's right at the exact same scene of, like, the most famous quote pretty much in cinema history almost. And like, it's I'm laughing at, I don't know what's wrong with me, maybe, or it's just like that's what the scene is supposed to be to people. But like, you have this dichotomy of literal, like, bombs being dropped very close in proximity, doesn't blink, doesn't isn't
Doesn't flinch.
affected, is not even looking around, not even asking questions, not even concerned whatsoever. Just like, whatever, we are going to go surfing. Like, that is my main priority. Have you seen these? Like, talking about surfing in the breaks of the beach as there's bombs exploding in the backdrop. And it's interesting because I think in the situation, if you do have like somebody who is managing a platoon of some capacity, you would probably be a little more cool even when bombs are like being displaced right next to you. If somebody were to be concerned about, either you thought they were crazy or you thought it was comfort, they've been here before, to talk about surfing. And I think, me personally, if I had a homie that's telling me, like, let's just go out and surf, it might make things a little more comfortable. You know, just, you got to dodge the bullets and dodge the bombs while on a surfboard. That seems a more reasonable approach than on land. You know,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know
I
what I'm
mean,
talking about, but that just seems awesome. It's like, it's one of the funniest scenes in film, but also I think it's like, to that, the mental fortitude or lack thereof of kind of people just losing it to some extent, which I
yeah.
appreciate.
It's one of the things that it's definitely very funny and humorous, and in the time when all of these explosions are happening. But even like those like little quiet moments where they're sitting around the campfire at night and they're drinking beers and roasting steaks. This is kind of my point about what it feels like home is one of my favorite quotes. Go ahead and play it.
Kilgore had a pretty good day for himself. They choppered in the T-bones and the beer and turned the LZ into a beach party. The more they tried to make it just like home, the more they made everybody miss it.
Make my meat rare, but not cold.
That's
Yes.
kind of, I mean, that's what it is. He was trying to, as far as Kilgore, he was trying to make his troops feel at home. They were tossing
Yeah.
footballs, cooking steaks, drinking beers. Let's go surfing, while all of this madness is happening around him. We'll fast forward to Colonel Kurtz, and he's doing the exact opposite. He's making it where it's the furthest away you can feel from what America is and what America stands for, and he's embracing the war as I feel like Kilgore is. The war is kind of a back burner to our R&R. Like, we want to have our R&R, and we'll go kill people to have our R&R, but that's not our main function. Our main function is to just kind of relax and surf. And if these Vietnam get in the way, well, they're gonna have to pay
Take care
for
of
it.
business. Yeah, I also love Kilgore as a name, Kilgore Trout from
Do you know what his original name was going to be?
No.
It was oh man, it'll come to me.
Yeah. I also, in the clip you just played, it reminded me of trivia that I just only realized today, that Martin Sheen wasn't available for a lot of the, not, I shouldn't say a lot, a fair amount of voiceover that was needed, in terms of a lot of the scenes that were shot late. And so in doing so, he realized, he talked to Joe Estevez, who's, I believe, Martin Sheen's brother, and he sounded identical to Martin, and was like, we can use his voice. They sound literally the same. And so Joe, he's not even like, I don't even think he's in the credits. Speaking of, there are no credits, and I was about to say this in the intro and outro, there are no credits to the actual film, which has led to some argumentation across the lawyer form of the worlds here. But Joe Estevez actually was doing a lot of the voiceover work for Martin Sheen when you think he's speaking.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I do know the fact that when they were courting Martin Sheen, doing the voiceovers, they were trying to direct him to kind of like be this vessel without any feeling, and he couldn't quite get it. And Martin Sheen is like a pacifist, like he doesn't like guns or war or anything like that. So John Milius, the writer of the film, came in with a loaded handgun, and Martin Sheen's like, "What the fuck?"
Jesus.
And he's like, is that loaded? He's like, yeah, it's loaded. And I want you to hold it, and just know at any point you can kill all of us in the room. And I want you to read your lines. And that's what he did. He was holding a loaded pistol, talking very close to the microphone like this. And that's how you got that voiceover.
I had no idea. Did they give that to Joe as well? That would be interesting. That is wild, because if you were scared, I wonder, I would like to see an interview of that exact moment of, how did you feel when this gun got placed in your hands? And then, because you're going to be a different person. I would imagine he just became like a different person. He doesn't believe in guns. He's going to be like, I'm going to become hard immediately. And somebody presenting it like, you can kill everyone in this room. That's some wild shit, man. I like that. I like all the facts of this movie, and the backstop is fantastic. That's like, the thing. Marlon Brando's just fat fuckery, like whatever you want to call it, is also awesome, and the whole movie gets transitioned because of that. It's great.
Just like, so this movie, Francis Ford Coppola didn't have an ending. He didn't know how he was going to end this movie. The first part was, it was going to be this big, firefight from the sky, and they were going to napalm, the whole village of Kurtz. But he just didn't feel that was right. He was like, I don't want to do a big bombastic ending. Like, this movie is already big and bombastic. It needs to end on a different note. They couldn't figure out. But, and then Marlon Brando comes in. He agreed to lose weight for this film. He was supposed to be slim and slender, and he comes in well overweight. But I think Marlon Brando knew what he was going to do. Like, he knew what the film needed, even though the director was like, you need to be skinny for this. Like, Marlon Brando's like, no, I got this. Just let me cook. Let me cook.
I disagree. I don't think, no, I actually completely disagree with that, because I think if you actually look at interviews from people that know Marlon Brando, that hung out with Marlon, like, he's one of the most talented actors. I mean, he's in my top 10 list, as I created, but he is one of the most talented actors of all time. But I think he also rested on his laurels, and also started buying into the fact that he was one of the greatest actors of all time in the process of acting in each role. And so he basically thought he was untouchable, to my understanding, and just was like, first of all, he didn't read Heart of Darkness before. Hearts of Darkness is the documentary, but like he didn't read Heart of Darkness before. He read it afterwards, and he actually had a disagreement with Francis Ford Coppola of like what would his name be. And he's like, yeah, it should be Kurtz, after he read the book and after everything was already shot, which is outrageous that he's going to be telling Francis, although they had some success together, what to do. But like, I don't think it's that. I think he just didn't give a flying fuck. And I know that even in Godfather, he didn't give a flying fuck because he had the cue cards that people were fucking holding up as for because he didn't memorize his lines then. So clearly, it's a carryover for him not giving a shit.
Here's a funny little story that I kind of heard about with Marlon Brando. What he would do to kind of test a director is like when he was first going into film his scenes or whatever, he would just kind of phone in the lines on the first take, right? Just phone them in. And if the director didn't challenge him and didn't say, "Hey, this is what I need from you," he would do that the rest of the movie because he didn't respect the director. So I mean, that's kind of like a very ego-centric kind of person, but he also had results.
Not really. It's like, you're the director, you're going to make this movie, but I'm willing to, let's see how far we can take this. Like, I'm a psycho. Let's go. Like, let's go there. And in essence, but Francis did go there with him because he actually, at the 2 minutes of, I mean, we're getting, this is much more fun than actually going through like the plot commentary. But at the very end of the movie, of course, in the big build up to the scene, oxes are getting slaughtered in real life. He had an 18-minute diatribe. I don't want to say diatribe, but like people on the recording end who were watching it were like, yeah, he went off the reservation a little bit, but a lot of what he said was like hugely significant and impactful. But it was non-scripted, completely ad-libbed. There was a structure to it, kind of like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where it's like, these are the scenes. This is the scene that we want to create. This is the idea and thought that we want to complete here. But 2 full minutes were actually like captured in that 18-minute diatribe. And it's so funny. At the very end of 18 minutes, he looks at Francis and he goes, like, he's the one saying cut. He's like,
he'd be like, that's it, cut.
That's all I have. And if you need anything else, find a different actor. I was like, God, like it's just, he got the most. They definitely have worked well together, and he definitely got the most out of him. But I will say this: I think I would have. I like the shadowy business. I do want to see the movie where he's thinner and I more tied to the book. With that being said, although the book is vastly different than this movie.
Let's listen to Dennis Hopper describing Colonel Kurtz.
He's dying, I think. He hates all this. He hates it. But the man's, he reads poetry out loud, all right? And a voice. A voice. He likes you because you're still alive. He's got plans for you. No. I'm not gonna help you. You're gonna help him, man. You're gonna help him. I mean, what are they gonna say, man, when he's gone, huh? Because he dies. When it dies, man. When it dies, he dies. What are they gonna say about him? What are they gonna say? He was a kind man. He was a wise man. He had plans. He had wisdom. Bullshit, man. Am I gonna be the one that's gonna set them straight? Look at me, wrong. You.
I like. What were your favorite quotes from this? Because, I mean, first of all, I have like 28 different line items here that none of which I've actually utilized so far, but which is hilarious that we're 43 minutes into this fantastic movie again. But like, did you have favorite quotes? Let's not even go into like napalm and smelling of mornings.
Yeah, that's the classic right there. Quotes, maybe more setups, like just like the setup of Clean listening to his mother's audio tape, and that was actually Lawrence Fishburne's real mother speaking into that.
Wow, was it?
Got that? Yeah.
Oh wow.
And then like the next scene later, he gets shot and killed. I mean, that's heavy. That's heavy because you just hear this this audio from his mother.
Oof.
So I don't know if I have like certain quotes that are obviously not the main ones, but these scenes of just, you know, pure cinema, you know, the score of the Ride of the Valkyries, is like top 10 movie moments of all time. Just
Yeah.
hearing that and
Yeah.
seeing that, just incredible. And the fact that like this is not filmed on a soundstage, like they went into the jungle and had to deal with typhoons and had to deal with, you know, although they were paying workers, you know, 2 cents on the dollar just to build sets and things like that. But it's incredible.
Pretty much the
What
entire
about you?
movie wasn't used as like straight audio because like there's always helicopter. There's like it was chaos evidently. So like most of the sound you hear is from a studio, which makes sense. I mean, you're in the wild, like the extreme wild. With that being said, with helicopters and things of that nature, I have a lot. I will say though, the one that sits with me because I think of myself as a writer almost first, and I just it's so powerful. It's like very poetic, but it's at the very beginning when old Willard is just giving his overture, first few minutes, but he said, "I hardly said a word to my wife until I said yes to a divorce," and I was like, "Damn, that is it's I don't know, it's like really really short, sweet, but extremely powerful."
It lets you know a lot about that character and that short,
Yeah.
because Willard is he's again like he's just the vessel for the film. Like we just follow him. He doesn't have much emotion. He doesn't smile once. He doesn't really have too much of an opinion on things. We're just there to follow him and see this like I said, the madness of the what he has to go through.
Yeah, I mean, boy, is it maddening. I mean, he's lost his brain before, and he continually is losing his brain during. But in speaking of, I found it interesting when he was talking about Kurtz. He said, if his story is really a confession, then so is mine. Another quote that it's fantastic, and also probably like a humorous quote that you don't really get too many humorous quotes here. But charging a man for murder in a place like this is like handing out tickets in the Indy 500. It's like that is
It's true.
a very good point.
I like the one that doesn't get talked about much because it's right after the smell of napalms in the morning is Kilgore is still talking, and he looks up at his soldiers and he just tells them, one day this war is going to be over. And like he's almost sad about that. Because right now he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He can go surfing, he can chase these things. He has all these people adoring him. One day this war is going to be over. And that's
can I I'm gonna jump in here because that was
Yeah.
my last and only quote that I had after this, and so I will try to make this a little better than that humdrum of a quote. Someday this war is gonna end, but not today. So let's surf.
Exactly. Thank you for tidying that up for me. I appreciate that. I don't have everything written down, so
Yeah, well, this is partially the reason that you should, but nonetheless, I just think overall, and again, I knew this was going to happen. I mean, we're 47 minutes in, but it just is. It's a bit of a mic drop. I mean, even after, can you imagine making Godfather 1 and Godfather 2? And not to say that, these are the totality of his movie list here, but like, and then having this as your third. So I often think about threes and reference to like movies, like, and I almost always actually, now I think about it, but I also think about like your third best running time, for example. Like somebody says they ran like a 340 1500, and that's a one-off race, and their second and third best times are like 51 and 52. Like you just had one good race. But if your best times are like 340, 340, and 341, like it's a different story. Nobody's going to understand this unless you're a runner. But also in the same sense, I think of like Gal Garcia Bernal and his three best movies, like Y Tu Mama Tambien, Amores Perros, and like Motorcycle Diaries. And I just am like, dude, he fucking crushed. And I also think of Pedro Almodovar, of like what his three best movies are, just go through them all. And Godfather 1, Godfather 2, and Apocalypse Now, and if you were to even entertain others, like boy, there is a very strong argument that he has got the greatest storytelling ability for film in the history of life. Full stop.
But here's the thing, going back with the running time. What if, you have these three great things earlier in your career, and then you don't finish a race the rest? Because I had a conversation with somebody about, for instance, Ford Coppola, and he's like, "Hey, I got a hot take. Like,
Yeah.
he hasn't made a good film since the '70s."
I
And
agree.
I'm like, well, I like
I agree.
Tetro, but
So
I don't know.
I am just saying you can extend that to like top 10. And I think like Tarantino is crushing that debate as if he ever finishes his 10th. And we're getting into a deeply different conversation. But like, I think if you start with the top 3 conversation, it's a hard conversation to beat Francis. And I think my desire, I think if you were to actually ask probably the entire world, Francis would win swimmingly. Maybe Spielberg probably gets the masses a little more upbeat, but I think Godfather 1, Godfather 2, I mean, Mark Budash, that's his like first movie and second movie.
I mean, Kubrick is right up there as well. The man that
Kubrick
we're
is
about
like,
to talk about.
Sure, yeah, good transition. But Kubrick is more of like, I don't know. And we might as well go into it now, I guess.
Well, I will say this, just one last thing, not necessarily about Apocalypse Now, but this is the day before Francis Ford Coppola's newest film is going to be shown to the public. Tomorrow he releases his, I think it's 30 years in the making, film called Megalopolis. And it's, the trailer just came out, but basically, again, no studio would fund it. It was too ambitious, too esoteric. So he, in 2021, sold his winery for like $500 million and self-funded this movie. So I'm interested in seeing it, just because that takes a lot of brass balls to do that again. But we'll see.
I would watch an M. Night Shyamalan movie every single time it comes out. So will I watch this? Of course. You always want to see another Sixth Sense.
Have you ever seen another Six? Like, do you think M. Night came out with anything?
Signs. Terrific.
Okay.
Have you seen The Following?
Let's not talk about that ever on this podcast, please.
Yeah. It's so bad. It was like the only movie not the only movie, but it was one of the few movies I ever watched, and I was like waiting, and I was like, wait a second, this is it. This is it. This is it. Like, there's nothing else. Like, it's just the wind.
If we ever do an episode where we play a game of golf where we're trying to get the lowest scored movie as like that's the goal, then maybe we might talk about that. But I don't know.
I'll end it with this quote, or you're to be the one who's going to be ending it here. But I like where Brando was saying, "You're an errand boy sent by grocery clerks to collect the bill," and I thought, in that moment, and this is a very good segue into going into Full Metal Jacket. I thought the way he presented that, he certifiably is crazy. 100%. Like, Brando is crazy in real life. Like, crazy in the sense, maybe he can get himself there, but he's crazy. Or he's just a really good actor. Or both.
A little bit of both.
And I think in Full Metal Jacket, you see, Asperger's or craziness come to like a particular life, and more from a directorial like perspective. But my last question to you, or my only question right now, is: Does Captain Ben take over? Does he go back? Do you think
he's headed back?
He's out.
He's out.
No. Do you think he's out, or does he? Because there was a moment there without words or smiles that it's like, is he about to take over? They're bowing down to him. Like, what's happening?
Well, he's the second, apparently the second person to do this mission. The first one being one that he meets that has fully embraced Kurtz's ideology. And I think Willard, for him killing him in a brutal way, I mean, the idea of like taking a machete, these guys are trained killers and they have guns, but they end it with him killing with a machete. But I guess that ties into the visual of the ox getting cut down as well.
Which is
But I
real.
think,
They did that in real life.
yeah. And it wasn't going to be in there, but Eleanor Coppola, Francis' wife, who was filming a documentary, kind of wandered around and saw this ritual thing happening. She saw this ritual happening, and she's like, Francis, you got to come see this. You got to come see this. And he's like, no. He's like, really, just come see this. And it was a ritual thing that was happening. And he's like, we got to put this in the film. PETA got really upset about this. This just did not like the scene at all. But as clearly as PETA would. But I think, as to your point, Captain Willard, I think he goes back with even more post-traumatic stress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm thinking
And-
going back, like he's on the boat, but I'm thinking he goes back and he's like, I would prefer to like go back and be Kurtz part 2. He's already lost his brain or slightly losing it. Anyway. But a fantastic film. Like there's not this is definitely not a Mortal Kombat in our world of trying to evaluate if a movie is good or bad. By the way, Mortal Kombat's the last of her on our list. Can't wait till we talk about something worse.
Yeah.
Like,
well, Full Metal Jacket's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be bottom of the barrel here. So,
no,
if you want to get into it,
I would love to. Yeah. So, Full Metal. I mean, the reasons that I chose this, but 116 minutes to give you some backstory here. Stanley Kubrick, director, 1987, which is interesting because there was a lot of movies in the war type scenario that was made before this, and I thought like Stanley was like late to the game looking back, but of course he Kubricked the shit out of this. 1987, rated R. It's about war. 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8.3 on IMDb. IMDb ratings are like interesting to me. They which is, I guess now that I think about it, our average rating is around an 83 as well. Huh, interesting.
but I don't consider this an average film.
No, not at all. That's a fair point. And a budget of 17 million with 120 in the box office. And I have to ask, have you ever had Francis Ford Coppola's wine?
Yeah, I have. I remember when it was released back in, 2005, 2006. I was working at a restaurant and I was like, Coppola, because I'd just seen him, come to my school and do a guest appearance. And I was like, this can't be the same Coppola. And sure enough, it was. But back then I wasn't really a wine drinker, so I couldn't really discern if it was good or if it was bad or whatnot. And I really haven't had it since. So
can you discern now?
Yes. I feel like, well, I can discern, like if you put a glass of, an Italian super Tuscan in front of me and French cab, I could tell you the difference between the two. I could tell you which is which.
What about a California cab and a French cab? Can you tell the difference?
Yeah, I could probably tell the difference. 100%.
Oh, wow. French oak is different than American oak.
It is, yeah.
It's his wine is okay. It could be better. It's not great, but it did sell it for $500 million. So name is pretty crucial, I would say. So anyway, Stanley Kubrick. I love Stanley Kubrick. I don't know. I'm a big purveyor and lover of lists. I have like a top 25 album. I have pretty much list on everything, but I do not have my favorite director list.
Ooh,
but if I had to guess,
that'd be a good one.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick is definitely high up on that list. He's I have to think about this a little more fulsomely, but Kubrick, I love you, even though you're dead. Stanley Kubrick. This is his take on the Vietnam War, which follows a smart aleck, Private Davis, who is played by Matthew Modine, or Modine, I don't know how to say his name, quickly christened as the Joker, who is fantastic, by his foul-mouthed drill sergeant, R. Lee Ermey, who happens to be, a drill sergeant in real life, and pudgy Private Lawrence, who is played by Vincent D'Onofrio. I don't know how to say that.
D'Onofrio,
Froyo,
yeah.
if you want to eat him. But boy, his portrayal of somebody like transitioning in the sense of being antagonized is I don't know of another character like devolation. Like it's interesting.
Devolution, yeah.
But nicknamed Gomer Pyle as a mockery to his name, and just basically saying that you're going to be like the Gomer Pyle of previous, as they endure the rigors of basic training. And that's pretty much the entirety of the movie. Basic training, basic training, basic training. And for some reason, I thought this was more about war until I watched it again, and my movie memory is pretty shit, to be honest with you. And so my memory is excellent in the sense I enjoy movies frequently if I haven't seen them. Give me 2 years, and it's like almost like a new movie watch, which I love. So it's good to be dumb to some extent, but they do go into war, and I'll get in, and that's probably one of my major concerns with this film. But I loved the precursor to it, and so Lee Ermey, the drill sergeant, is just antagonizing every single person, including Joker, including all the Marine Corps. And it's interesting, though, with Kubrick, one in particular, and I don't know if there's a word for this in terms of a film major that would be able to tell me exactly what's going on, but he actually created a lens that was able to, while backing up in, of course, like their bunker, not the bunkers, but like where do they
Dolly.
sleep?
Oh, and
I
the
don't know.
barracks.
The barracks. There's the other B word.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of the barracks, there's a lot of shots, and when they're grabbing their crotch and talking about their rifles, which we'll get to in a second. But like, there's a shot where it's similar to The Child and The Shining, but from the other inverse end of the kid going down in the trolley. It's like in the back stop where it just like goes back through the barracks. And I didn't notice this, and I only saw this through doing my Googling. But the fact that, and I haven't even actually looked at it after, but there is an ability for that lens that he created for this movie to have every single person in focus.
In focus, yeah.
With
the wide lens pulling out, yeah.
Which is unreal when you really think about it. Because like I take photographs like all the time, and to be able to do that, I don't know how to do it on. I mean, maybe I'm just stupid, but like I don't know how to do that. And he created something that was able to basically not focus on anyone, but in essence, a militaristic view of like we've got this together, but also like the single unit is nothing.
That's Kubrick for you. And this, like you said, there are two distinct parts of this film, and you have like the first part, which is them at Paris Island at boot camp, and the second part where they're at war. Now, a lot of people feel as the better part of this film is in that first part, and that's the more kind of like, I mean, if they just stopped it right there at the 39-minute 40-minute mark and said that's the film, I would incredible, right? Incredible. But there is a second part to this film, and
I think when the second part opened up to the world, that to the war, I think it opened up the fact that it kind of like trimmed away the ability for Kubrick to manage like mise-en-scene, and like his framing was a little less like tight. And so when you put Kubrick in a room, like he's going to give you the best shot possible, and better, in my opinion, better than Wes Anderson. Like he's going to give you the best shot possible. But like when he opened, and I'm criticizing it immediately, but like when you put him into a world of like war, which mind you has excellent shots, excellent, like everything is pretty fantastic. I mean, maybe I could make it better, and I couldn't make it better, but like the first part of it basically is like private school, as you know, later in your life, 5th grade. But to an nth degree. And I have the question for you, like, how do you think you would deal with somebody just screaming at you, and at a volume that is like no other? And if you have a clip, for example, about skull fucking, that would be good. If you have another clip about the Virgin Mary, that would also be good. Any of these clips is going to be monumental. But let me frame this before you play anything. he was a drill sergeant at this time, and I believe, basically this was his biggest acting role of all time, and still is to this day. But it's not going to get better. But like, he was literally a drill sergeant and was ad-libbing lines. And when Kubrick heard him, he was like, "Motherfucker, there is no way I can write something better than this." And he was like, he started writing the script for his lines as he's listening to them. He's like, "That's really like, yeah, I can't do this better." And like Kubrick, by the way, you know this, Kubrick never does this. Everything is structure. And I think it's one of the few times he ever he's clearly better than anything I could ever write, ever do. This is your role of a lifetime. And went into diatribes galore. And also when they actually made him, actually act, like he probably didn't even think he was acting. There was like, I think 3 shots where he had to do it more than once. And one, there was like 67 times that he had to do something with the sandwich, when he had to like talk about that repeatedly, which wasn't his lines, but everything else was pretty much to a T, just vomit. And everyone there was like legitimately scared. And my question to you is like, how would you react if this dude's just screaming at you like that?
And the fact that the way that you have to respond is to shout back in a very militaristic manner. I would look. I'm not in the military. There's a reason I'm not in the military. I wouldn't do well in a boot camp situation.
But your mother and father were.
Yeah, they were musicians, but they did still have to go through boot camp. So they weren't. The clarinet doesn't have a sharp knife on the end of it.
Maybe your mom's did.
Maybe, I don't know. But here's the thing about Arlie Ermy. He got into the film world after his military training. And yes, he was a drill instructor, but he was also on the set of, or not maybe the set, but he was a advisor for Apocalypse Now. And he was an advisor for Full Metal Jacket when that was in pre-production. And they already had cast the drill instructor. But Stanley Kubrick wasn't getting everything he wanted out of the actor that they cast in it. So Arlie Ermy was like, "I've been a drill instructor. Let me try it out." And kind of exactly what you said, like he just started ad-libbing for 20 minutes on end. And Kubrick was just floored. And he's like, "You have to be in this." So I thought that was really interesting that, how he came about this, because he wasn't even cast in the movie at first. Incredible.
I didn't know that. To take a backstop, there's something I was telling like my wife about this recently, that I don't think I have Asperger's, and I'm fairly certain of it. But I think that I have a lot of friends, not family, but I have a lot of friends around me and people I'm very interested in that are in this weird, I shouldn't say weird, but like, including my wife, I like the people that push boundaries in a very systematic way. And I think that's the best way to explain Asperger's, or the way to understand the world in a very symmetrical way. And I think Asperger's does that. And I think Kubrick, if I had to guess, either you get too obsessed with something and you show the notion of having Asperger's, or you just have Asperger's to begin with. And so while they were shooting, by the way, and this is like one of the examples I have, because he's obsessed with like angles, like the focus, framing. Symmetry, like his framing is unfucking real. It's like we're talking about with Jack Nicholson, for example, when he was like walking down the hallway losing his brain when he was like going to dinner in The Shining, and each mirror that you saw in that hallway, every time he saw himself, Jack, like he started like punching the air, like just like losing it. Like those are the types of moments that, like, I think only either somebody who's like entirely obsessed with what they're doing, like who has lost their mind to some extent, or has Asperger's. But on location, they're filming or trying to find this to where to film. Stanley was driving his wife's new SUV around the countryside with cinematographer Douglas, reading something right now, Millstone and Arlie Emery as passengers, right? Did you hear about this?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. That's a good answer, even if you did. At one point, Kubrick noticed a potential location out of his window as driving. So I guess he would be on the right side. Um, and became so fixated. This is what, like, somebody, like, again, I see this day to day, and I'm no pro at this, no psychologist, but like I'm very fascinated by people that like get so obsessed with things, because I myself get pretty obsessed with things. And he became so distracted about like this location being used in the film that he literally crashed into a 6-foot ditch and
What?
and rolled the SUV like with Arlie Emery, and
That's
still continued talking after. Like, he wanted to get everything out, like everything out of his mouth, like in his head. He's like, "This is what we're gonna do.
he had to. It was a
This
compulsion.
this is what we're gonna do." Right over there, and I was like, I love that. Like, I love when people take things to a crazy degree, and I think Hunter S. Thompson maybe not had Asperger's, but like that's what I love about Kubrick. I really appreciate any time where I'm a stupid person. Like, when I notice things, are like, this is. I'll pause it when I was watching it with Sonia, and I was like, this is a perfect shot. Like, literally like a perfect shot. And I don't know of another director, including Francis, that actually is able to do this. Like, and not to say that that makes him the best director, but I don't know of any other director, honestly, because I thought about this a lot, and I did this a lot annoyingly while watching with me. I paused it, and I paused it a lot, and then I would literally break down the pictures in the scene, and I was like, this is in focus, and maybe that's his new contraption. I was like, this is not only in focus, but like what is actually happening, even mid talk, mid sentence, whatever it is. If this were if you blow this up on and put it on your wall, this is a very good picture. And I don't know of any other director, honestly, that you could say that to. Maybe Wes Anderson has it now, but there's like a digital version that he is using. But like Kubrick, you could pause movies and blow up pictures, and they look like they're legitimate pictures. And so, in terms of originally what movies are, moving pictures,
Right.
he is the greatest moving picture director ever, in my opinion, which there's not a lot of, to be fair, but I think his
mise-en-scene is incredible.
it's the best, I think, of all time. Yeah, I would say Tarkovsky. I'm looking at a film poster of Stalker right now, but Tarkovsky, to me, is a close favorite, but Kubrick is the best of all time, like no other. But anyway, it's the first part of the movie is just being yelled at. I don't think I would be good at being yelled at.
Let's hear
Let's
being
hear.
yelled at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on your feet. You had best unfuck yourself, or I will unscrew your head and check down your neck. Sir, yes, sir. Private Joker, why did you join my beloved corps? Sir, to kill, sir. So you're a killer? Sir, yes, sir. Let me see your war face. Sir, you got a war face? Ah, that's a war face. Now let me see your war face. Ah! Bullshit, you didn't convince me. Let me see your real war face. Ah! You don't scare me. Work on it. Sir, yes, sir.
God, man. I mean, he's so believable, because he's taking the energy that of being a drill sergeant, and like, there have been Marines interviewed about like how realistic this is. Like, people don't get hit, for example, in like the military, allegedly, but like there is an intensity there that like I've never heard or seen in film since. It's pretty fucking wild, and he's not acting. I mean, this is like him in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And
Oof.
even that opening scene where we kind of get introduced, and that was part of it, but introduced to all of the Marines. They just got their heads shaven, so their identity is gone. They're all called maggots. They're worthless. They're trying to be built into these killer machines. And I kind of had this thought when I first watched it, was I was kind of like having that smirk, that grin that Sergeant Pyle has when he's confronted. And have you ever had that where you can't stop like smiling or laughing, and you're kind of in a situation that doesn't call for it? I've been in that, but it's like, man, Gomer Pyle, like, just wipe that smile off your face. This is not going to be good for you. And he's like, I want you to choke yourself. And he puts his own hands up. He's like, not with your hands, with mine. And I don't know about you, but if I was choked just like Gomer Pyle, like, the smile would be gone. I'd be like, oh shit, this is serious. And that's
really,
because
I think that would be even funnier. Like, I just think like he's taking to another degree. Like, I think it'd be funnier. Like, you're making me like, what is this? Is this is so funny. I don't know. I think maybe I wouldn't, because like in the moment you're going to be serious. You're going to take this very serious, like Francis, his wine, and I just don't think. I think the military is actually very good and gets a bad rap. The military actually has very good ways to train human beings to have a structure, and I think human beings do actually need a structure. It does get a bad rap for films, I would say, though. But
well, yeah, because it's portrayed as taking these young, innocent, sometimes people that didn't even sign up for what they were getting into, and turning them. It's the war machine. That's what they're producing. They're producing soldiers, killers, and to do that, you have to break people. And there's some people that can break, and there's some people that can snap. And
I
disagree
with that. I disagree with that. You don't have to break people. They don't want to find your breaking point. They want to find that when can you reach out to camaraderie? When can you actually reach out for help if you need it? They're not the military in terms of like, Hell Week. They're not trying to break people. They're trying to see if, because like there's ability to manipulate acceptance rates, if that makes sense. And if you were to read any books on the military, you would know this. But there's not a breaking point per se. I mean, certainly there is, but like
I'm saying that in regards to one central character. But what I think, what I think the
understood.
What I think boot camp is all about is not just getting people in shape and training them on how to shoot a rifle, but it's part of that bonding experience to create this brotherhood of people that, when we're out in the shit, I'm not going to be the one that gets you killed, and you're not going to be the one that gets me killed. And if that happens, then I haven't done my job right. And that's kind of what boot camp is about.
Do you know that oftentimes, not only in Vietnam, but often in war, and actually extremely often in war, people are actually much more depressed when they come home, because they feel like they were actually in an environment that was supportive. There was a team. Going back to Sebastian
there was an objective, a mission. They had a purpose.
Going back to Sebastian Junger's like tribe, like you had your tribe, you have your tribe, and when that gets removed, like your identity is kind of like swept under the rug to some extent, and you don't know who you are anymore. And so oftentimes people come back from war and want to go back, and that was their happiest place. And I think, like, talking about just humans, like, we're good with structure. We're best with structure. Everyone is, even if you don't think you are. Like, we are overwhelmingly, and I think the military does that the best with human nature, of like putting a structure down, whether it's for a good use or a bad use. I mean, that's up for interpretation to some, and why war would be good or bad. But like, I do believe the military's methods are actually fantastic, and some of which I actually try to employ in my own life. I mean, I haven't taken a day off from running in almost 6 years at this point, and it's systems-based approach. Systems-based approaches for every single thing in life. If you want to be successful at anything in life, you should put a structure to it. If you can. If you can't put a structure, there's not many things I don't think that you can put a structure to, but I think it's best in your own life. But anyway, off the beaten topic.
I also
go on.
I also think in the military that, especially like with some of the quotes and lines in this film, is that they want the soldiers to have an idea of God, right? and that one clip of, believing in the Virgin Mary, which I'll play here in a second. But the reason behind that is because most of these kids are going to go off to war. Some of them aren't going to come home, but at least having the idea of there's something after war, even if you die, that is kind of sacred to, I think, a lot of the concept of the military and sending these boys out. Did you get that? Did you pick that up at all?
No.
All right. Well, let's play the clip.
Yeah.
Private Cowboy, Private Joker.
Sir, yes, sir. Sir, yes, sir.
As soon as you finish your bunks, I want you 2 turds to clean the head.
Sir, yes, sir.
I want that head so sanitary and squared away that the Virgin Mary herself would be proud to go in there and take a dump.
Sir, yes, sir.
Private Joker, do you believe in the Virgin Mary?
Sir, no, sir.
Well, Private Joker, I don't believe I heard you correctly.
Sir, the private said no, sir, sir.
Why, you little maggot, you make me want to vomit. You goddamn communist heathen, you had best sound off that you love the Virgin Mary, or I'm gonna stomp your guts out. Now, you do love the Virgin Mary, don't you?
Sir, negative, sir.
Private Joker, are you trying to offend me?
Sir, negative, sir. Sir, the private believes that any answer he gives will be wrong, and the senior drill instructor will beat him harder if he reverses himself, sir.
My God. I mean, this isn't like a podcast about family problems, but like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think I would be very good to be yelled at. Like, listen, I'm trying to picture myself in this situation, and I just remember my like father yelling at me like that. That's tough. That's very tough. And also like the idea that, like, you have to enunciate what I'm saying right now was probably the wrong answer, and you're going to be like distraught and hit me, which, by the way,
Regardless.
like, yeah. Like, it's a powerful moment.
He could have just lied
at 18.
He could have lied. But
it's better to be stupid.
Although, at the end of boot camp, everybody gets infantry. Even Gomer Pyle, infantry. You made it.
Yeah.
What does Private Joker get? He gets news correspondent, and I love that. I can't remember the exact line, but he's like, "What the hell do you think you're some kind of writer?" He's like, "I was on my high school newspaper."
Which is I think it's the only aspect that you actually get to know the humans in a film and their backstory. You know nothing. Where they're from, you get no information from them. Like, can you give me any information on anyone besides, like, I wrote for newspaper?
Yeah.
There's no information, which is interesting because it's more about the collective ideal. But I will say this, moving on to actual war itself. I mean, I would like to see my, I kind of want to go through Hell Week just to see what it would be like and see how I would react. But I think carrying boats, as David Goggins would say, what a psychopath. You have to like go into like, I think I'm crazy to some extent, but like he is wildly crazy. And I think that you have to be crazy to be a Marine. And I think you have to be crazy to be in the military to some extent. But with that being said, Animal Mother, is that his name?
Animal Mother. Yeah.
Boy, initially when being presented with Animal Mother, how's your lower back, by the way? I mean, I know
I need to get support back here. I'm on a stool. But anyways, we're talking about Animal Mother, man. Like, this is like almost like a cartoon character in the movie with the way he's set up and dressed.
Yeah. First of all, let's talk about the tops of the hats. I mean, having, I thought about this, like Born to Kill, like in English, when you're in the Vietnam War, is interesting because you're basically just telling that to yourself that I'm born to kill. And if you're telling that to yourself, it's a ridiculous statement that's like being printed on war or in a wartime, like where I am become death. It's like you're just trying to psych yourself up verbally to your other people, like I'm, born to kill. It's hilarious, but it's probably something that you would do at 18. But Animal Mother,
also wear a peace sign.
Yeah, because of the dichotomy of human nature, which is hilarious. Like it's such a funny concept. But Animal Mother, at the very beginning of being presented, I was like, fuck this guy. This is so ridiculous. But eventually I was like, this is probably a large majority of human beings that want to be on the front line
The alpha.
and be the alpha, but also I mean, oftentimes there's an alpha with intelligence, but like there's no alpha with intelligence with animal mother. And I think you do need, in terms of war, you do need people that are like animal mother, 100%. Because without them, like you're not gonna probably breach pretty much anything or have the balls to go into war itself. Um, but what a fantastic character, but also like a simple character. I don't know what he's done since. Haven't looked him up, but I love
Adam
him.
Baldwin. Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up. I didn't do enough Google research on this, but I will say, getting into the second part of the film, you get to know a little bit more about Joker. He's kind of grown out his hair. Well, he has grown out his hair. He has his kind of sidekick and Raffer man who wants to see action. Um, and when it gets to the actual like the filming of Kubrick filming like the war and these scenes, like it reminded me a lot. I think I didn't look this up, but I think that Spielberg took a lot of this inspiration into Saving Private Ryan,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
it felt like a lot.
Yeah. Because like if without the sound of a tank, would there be war?
It's a good question.
Both movies, like
Ah,
the sound of that. Yeah, I didn't think
I like
that
that.
came on the fly, but
That's great.
the sound of the tank when the little smiling face on the side of the building when they're like first starting into war in Full Metal Jacket and then Saving Private Ryan as well. It's it's interesting. Like without that tank, is there war? But did you have any like favorite quotes from the movie? Because Apocalypse Now is like an endless supply of quotes to me. Um, I had a harder time. I mean, I should say this: removing uh, the drill sergeant.
Yeah,
Did
because
you have
all the
a
best
favorite
lines,
quote?
all
Are
the best.
fantastic. They're
Yeah,
unbelievable. But
yeah.
like, did you have a favorite quote outside of that?
Um, Again, these are kind of scenes and impressions that left with me. And it was kind of like right when we got introduced to Animal Mother, and they're kind of like sitting there, and he's reunited with Cowboy, and you have the other soldier sitting next to this guy that's apparently sleeping with his hat over his head. You just think that this guy's sleeping, and then we learn that it's a killed Viet Cong, and the way that they talk about it, and it's like the way that this guy is talking about this guy, and he's just sitting next to him, and he's a dead man. Like, this soldier will never be the same. Will never be the same.
Yeah,
Even when if he makes it back home, it's like there's no coming back from it. And I think
that
that's kind
moment
of what the point is with the final scene and what Joker has to do.
that that moment is one of the I mean, even with like Pyle shooting the drill sergeant and like all of that, like and losing his mind, great acting, but that moment was very tough, like just very tough to watch because like there was a hat on his face, they took it off and it was just like clearly as a viewer you knew like the person wasn't dead, but the act of watching this movie to begin with, like you're watching a Vietnam War, so you kind of I mean, this is me trying to take myself out of the situation to make myself feel better, but like it's very, that's war again, its essence, like this dead Viet Cong that has a hat on his face and takes it
And
off
he's
as a joking manner. That's fucking, I don't know, man. Like the,
using a dead man
I
as
don't
a
think I
prop.
would.
Not
I don't think I would do that in real life. I would hope I wouldn't. But like
These
my
are 18-year-old
fucking,
kids.
I understand that your prefrontal cortex is not yet formulated, but like that is fucking intense, man. It's it's a moment that I love in movies that you have to take a step back and be like, this is just a movie. You're gonna be okay, almost. And I love that with Alejandro Jodorowsky. Like it makes me like trip my mind off, like Holy Mountain. And I like moments where he like directors can get me there. And to go back to the Asperger's thing, like Kubrick definitely, if I had to guess, had Asperger's, and I really enjoy when people are just so obsessed, like completely fixated on something, even if like their whole, if not my friends of mine, but I do have friends that are like this. They just like ruin their lives for one ultimate goal, and just don't give a flying fuck about anyone or anything, and just like this is the way this should be shot. And Kubrick did that, as you know, with The
Do
Shining,
you
and just
do you
like
think
ruins people almost to some extent, but like gets the best out of them. And afterwards, like Michael Jordan, they're like, you pushed me so hard, I fucking hated you at the time, but we won 6 championships. That's what Kubrick is to me.
do you think Kubrick kind of like it got progressively worse for him? Because I think with people with Asperger's or has slight take of Asperger's, like it's kind of like
Yeah.
a mental superpower that I can't access or whatnot. But
I think you have
what
access to it.
okay, well, I don't thank you. But what I want to illustrate here is that Kubrick early in his career was churning out movies at a pretty decent clip, right? And
Yeah.
then we get to Barry Lyndon, and then we get to The Shining, which took a long time to film, and then another 5 or 6 years till we get to Full Metal Jacket, and that's the last movie that came out in his lifetime. Whereas he filmed
Eyes Wide
Tom
Shut.
Cruise and Eyes Wide Shut, but that came out in 1999, and he didn't live to see the film being released. So it was almost like he becoming too obsessive, where it was slowing down his progress of actually making films.
So I disagree. Maybe that's it. Maybe, sure. I think though there is a secondary, tertiary, whatever you want to say, idea possibly that you're missing, in the sense when you come out with your first movie, your first film, your first album, your first song, your first anything, maybe that's your best. Maybe it's close to your heart. And sophomore slump in terms of albums is a thing, but I think if you were to be a very extremely talented person, you're not going to have a sophomore more slump. You're going to have like multiples of movies in your hopper, and I think he did. And even if you have Asperger's, I don't think it's the reason that he would have an inability to have film, or that it prevented him from being a good film director in the future. But the ideas are less, and the ideas are less because he basically created 6 to 7 films that fucking absolutely destroyed. And maybe he had a slight Marlon Brando where he was like just resting on his laurels, but I don't think so. I just think that he basically satisfied his needs in life. And Clockwork Orange is, I mean, unbelievable film. And so like if you were to take like his Au revoir and extrapolate it, I don't think it's because, and again, I have no idea. This is me just trying to just apply some psychology here. But I don't think it's because of Asperger's. But I do firmly believe he has Asperger's, and my wife probably gonna hate me. But I tend to find myself with humans that are around me that have this type of condition, that just get obsessed with things, including you. But I don't think there's a separation of that. And also later in life, when you have been so successful at something, you're not going to be so drawn to things, and things are going to take a little more time to actually get you back into what you want to do. And I think Eyes Wide Shut did that, which is interesting, with Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman acting out. But by the way, what a underrated film that is. Like, hugely underrated Kubrick film.
It's amazing. I watched it like last Christmas, because it is, I think, an adjacent Christmas movie, or Christmas adjacent.
It is. We talked about this. Yeah. We did talk about this when we were going into our first episode of like what our favorite Christmas films would be, or the best Christmas film. But yeah.
That's a early unreleased first episode that we did. Yeah, but
it'll never get released. But I have a favorite quote, by the way. And so my favorite quote, which is hilarious. I mean, besides the quotes that were provided Oli. So there's not one horse in Vietnam. There's something wrong with that. And for some reason, I just laughed hysterically. I just thought this was an unbelievable clip and singing it out loud.
Why do you think, or why did he think there was something wrong with that? I mean, can you extrapolate a little bit? Can you?
Wrong with not
Any
having
reason?
a horse in Vietnam? I don't know.
It's not American.
Do they have horses in Vietnam though?
I mean, I'm sure they do. I didn't look that up. But I'm sure I mean, come on, it's a horse. Horse, of course. But what else? What else you got?
No, native horses. Do you think there are native horses to Vietnam?
Probably not. I mean, the horse originated like in the Arabs, right?
I don't know.
Pretty sure.
Pretty sure. Yeah. What is that? Anyway, let's get on to scoring. How about that? By the way, the last part of this, the Mickey Mouse outro, which I would hope you can play.
Oh, I have it. You want me to play that? Just let me know when.
Is hysterical.
Mickey-Mouse. Who's the leader of the club that's made for
My thoughts drift back to erect nipple wet dreams about Mary Jane Rottencrotch and the great homecoming fuck fantasy. I am so happy that I am alive, in one piece and short. I'm in a world of shit, yes, but I am alive, and I am not afraid.
My God.
They're just kids, man. They're just kids fighting a war.
He's alive.
He's alive.
He's alive.
What did you feel? What did you feel about the voiceover between this and Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse Now is better by far because I think Martin Sheen's voice is better. But I do like the naive, the youngness in the voice. The voice,
like Matthew Modine.
Yeah. But I do think that Martin Sheen actually did like a much better job, or Joe Estevez, like by far. But he legitimately sounded troubled in real life.
Yeah.
Like there's sometimes like where I think about, are people acting or are they just like being themselves in like this weird tangential like moment? And I think Marlon Brando is crazy. I think is legitimately crazy. And I think he was crazy in this film. I mean, anyone who gains 70 pounds when they had to lose it and then just shows up, it has to be certified to be fucking crazy. And he also, as you were saying, like he's challenging Francis, but still that is challenging to an extent. Like I have these 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds is one thing. 40, 50, 70 is a very different story. I mean, Sergeant Pyle, for example, was requested to gain that exact amount of weight and did, and took a long time to do it, but like he was fucked up for even a long period of time afterwards to try to lose the weight. But like Marlon was just like, I'm going to go off on my own and just eat some food.
He wasn't asked to. And they even like to try and work that into the script of like him being gluttonous or whatever, and like him eating mangoes on screen. Like Marlon Brando's like, no, I'm going to read poetry.
He said, but this is what I mean. It's not like a challenging moment. It's not. I don't think it's. I think he's also got Asperger. He's got some sort of the spectrum. But with that said, my favorite quote probably of both movies in a non-objective way and more of like a fun way is I don't know if you have this, but I bet you're the kind of guy that would fuck a person in the ass and not even have the goddamn courtesy, common courtesy to give him a reach around. I'll be watching you. And pause. Kubrick goes, cut. What the fuck was that? And goes up to Lee and he was like, what's a reach around? Literally, like in real life. And then Lee, like he tried to explain it, like, oh, it's like when you like a person behind you, like puts her arm out and like jerks you off. And he's like, oh, we'll keep that.
We'll keep that.
I thought it was like so amazing that there was a pause moment of Kubrick, and I would love to see like the back, like the actual scene of the filming of that scene, which is very similar to like the journalist showing up in the war scenes
In the war zone,
of
yeah.
the movie itself. And I was like, this is kind of Kubrick in his element of like filming this scene to begin with. But fantastic. I mean, these films, I actually had a really tough time, more so than any other films that we've done this, like an entire podcast. I had a very, very difficult time putting pen to paper and quantification of like what would be best and like how to score them.
One of my favorite, this was tough. One of my favorite quotes was from, I don't have it pulled up on it right now, but I'm just going to ad lib. But it was when he was being interviewed by the TV crew. And like one of the last things he said was like, yeah, I wanted to be the first kid in my block to have a confirmed kill. Like he's a joker. I thought that line was hilarious, but it turns out like he is presented that dilemma at the end of the movie where he, has to, this woman is suffering, the sniper, and the fact that, his rifle jammed on him. Like, this is my rifle. This is my gun. Like he was supposed to take care of it. And the rifle jammed on him, and Rafferty had a shooter, but he had to finish the job, and he didn't, and they wanted to, Animal Mother wanted to let her suffer and walk away, but he couldn't do that. But he also didn't want to have to kill somebody. You see it in his face.
She wanted to be killed though.
Yeah.
Allegedly. I mean, there was like some translation barriers that in that scene where she was.
No, she said, shoot me.
Yeah, no, but anyway, what would you say your rating was for your movie, Apocalypse Now, best performance?
I gave it a 90 just on the performance-wise best performance. It was between Marlon Brando and Kilgore.
So you do a single performance, not the collection?
I want to do a best performance. If 90 is going to be my Marlon Brando, I just couldn't choose between because they were both 90s for me.
So I gave it a 95. It was not only Marlon Brando, but I mean, pretty much. I mean, Robert Duvall. I mean, got nominated for this.
He did, yeah.
I don't know. 95. I mean, it's. I can find people that were not great. Not really. I mean, 95. It's a pretty ideal performance, honestly.
Should we title this Best Performances then? I think that might be a little bit more on the nose.
Yeah, but then go on.
Oh, well,
Pedantic
whatever.
Motherfucker.
Best quote. All-time classic movie quote. The napalm's in the morning. It stands out as one of the best. 95.
I gave it 100. I don't think there's it's not just that quote. There's a variety of quotes that were really touching in terms of like contextually. If you were to write this out, it's poetry. And I think the overture that Martin Sheen gives it is I don't know. It's one of the greatest movies of all time, but like it's 100 for me. And I understand like giving hundreds out is willy nilly, but the quote is
Here,
a 10%.
but this is what we're talking. We're talking about one of the best films in history. Like,
I'm trying to qualify my justification for a film. I shouldn't. I should just be like, fuck you, and this is my number. But like, I just want to say it because it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
It's dialectics, man. It's dialectics.
Yeah.
1 through 9, we're going to Venus. You can't land on fractions. Yeah. Anyways, editing. Again, score. I gave it a 90. Again, having the doors, having the music was incredible. Now, if we had a thing that said best sound, that would have been 100.
um, we can do that. Best score was 95 because I think that not only the intro but the sound itself. Because in the background, I love movies that are able to meld into, like for example, the boat situations when you have music, and not just music actually being over, like the overture of like Martin Sheen, basically. When you have music being played in the movie, I love that. It's so good.
Yeah.
So I gave it a 95. But
Cool.
the beginning is like fucking unreal.
It's amazing. Best editing, again, over 200 hours of film, and to create this and to have the wherewithal to cut big scenes that didn't make the actual theatrical cut, like the French Plantation, which is in the director's cut and Redux, that adds 45 minutes to the film. But if just talking about editing the actual film, I give it 100. Outstanding.
Wow. It's my lowest score, actually. I thought the editing
Interesting.
could supremely be better, and maybe I'm comparing it to Full Metal Jacket, where the editing is. I think of things in a more precise manner. I think things could be lopped off a little better. And if you were to do your Asperger's application, I think you could be more obsessed with the editing of this movie, and also all of Francis's movies to begin with. So I gave it an 85.
Oh, wow. Disagree, but screenplay writing, again, taking something that they thought was unfilmable, unwritable, taking a pre-contextualized novel and putting Vietnam on it, and it being very, very powerful, even though it's, like I said, a series of vignettes, but it's still
Yeah,
very powerful. 95.
same. I mean,
Cool.
it's I don't know what else to say. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And directing for me, I wanted to give it 100, but I just couldn't, for reasons that I think the vision of Francis Ford Coppola was amazing, and what he created was amazing. But I gave it a 95.
I gave it a 90. The editing to me, like, again, to the second time today, like, it's not pedantic, but like it just is.
There it is.
Again, no, the second time. It's a great. I don't know. I mean, how do you like break this down? It's so ridiculous. First of all, the directing is absolutely fantastic. One of like my favorite movies of all time. But I think if you break some shots down, the directing could be significantly better, actually. In a sense, like it would make the movie better. But I gave it a 90. But
Okay.
still a 93 and a half, which is, pretty much one of my
That's
highest
my
rated
score.
movies.
93 and a half.
Oh, that's yeah. So I actually had a tough time to give you the backstop for this. I thought I was going to rate these movies the same, and then I sat for a long time with a run. I came back, I rescored them like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, Apocalypse Now, quite simply, is a better movie overall. In how I feel, and every single time I've watched it, I love the Asperger's feel of, and I'm going to offend. Hopefully, I don't get canceled because of Asperger's, but like, I love how things can be extremely symmetrical and perfect, even if they aren't, because nothing is perfect in life. And I love the fact that somebody tries to get perfect. And I think this goes into a lot of what we're going to be talking about next week, with Perfume being pitted against Killer Joe. And I think with Perfume, like the character of there is like he's obsessed. Has Asperger's clearly. But Kubrick is that. He's the epitome of it. But with that being said, when I try to qualify the two or quantify the two, still the creativity of Francis and the actual story itself was better, even with way better, in my opinion, not cinematography, but like the mise-en-scene.
Filmmaking
It's
techniques.
way better. It's way better for Kubrick, but everything else collectively is better for Apocalypse Now. but performance is the same. I gave it a 95 because for performance, drill
Who?
sergeant. I mean, I don't know. I don't know another character that has a performance like that. But I will say this: like, I actually will go back to Pyle and say that it's so. Everyone basically says like Pyle had the best performance, but I disagree. I do think he had the second best performance, but I don't think he had the best.
Fair.
Shots fired.
Shot. Well, I mean, here's the rationale behind that, because they know that Arlie Ermy was a drill sergeant, so he could do this. But it's the performance of the drill sergeant. Like, not everybody could do that, and people are just saying, well, he was just acting like himself. But I don't feel that way. You've seen him in, I'm sure, another movie in Prefontaine, where he was the Bill Bowerman coach.
Yeah.
But he was. This movie wouldn't be as iconic as it is today if he was not in that role.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
100%.
So, 90 for me.
Actually,
I was also
you take him out, like, you actually don't. You have a 75%, 80% movie like with us. Like, it's a significant change.
Yeah, he lifts all tides. If I would say with
All
this,
boats.
with
He lifts all boats.
It's getting late in the night here with my coconut water. But
356.
I will say this about Vincent D'Onofrio. I was watching this TV show Daredevil a few years ago, back in the day, and he plays the character Kingpin. And I was watching this. I was like, this is an amazing actor. Like, who is this guy? Like, why haven't I seen him before? And I like look him up on IMDb, and I was like, oh my gosh, he was Private Pyle. And I look back at some of his other film credits and things like that. And he was also, I don't know if you've ever seen Men in Black, but
Yeah.
yeah, you have, I'm sure. But he's the farmer guy that gets kind
The
of
crazy guy.
the crazy guy. Yeah, that's Vincent
Yeah,
D'Onofrio. And I just like, I mean, he's a super talented actor, and he put himself on the map with this film. And that's why I was like, when I saw it, I was like, I was surprised that he hadn't done anything. Then I was like, oh yeah, he did do all of these other things. So he's very celebrated.
I am so terrible at like finding other people's faces in movies and be like, first of all, I thought I was good. So did my wife. And we were like, we're really good at this. Until we hung out with other people and they're like, oh, and the nanny was like, oh, that's him. I'm like, that's not him. I looked at him. Oh, wow, that is him.
Sure is.
I'm very bad at this. Which next week I will actually comment upon if you actually watch your movies. But nonetheless, fantastic person and performance. Best quote, 95. I don't think it was as good as Apocalypse Now, but there were quotes from Full Metal Jacket, clearly of just being a diatribe of vomit that are, are still being used to this day. But 95.
Yeah, I gave it a 95 as well. Like I said, the quotes, you just can't come up with them, can't beat them. It's amazing.
Interestingly, I will keep my score as it is, but the best score, I don't really remember the score at all here.
The score is very very synth heavy.
I gave it a 90, but looking back,
it's amazing.
I feel like I should have given this an 85 or an 80.
And the songs that they picked,
sure,
bird.
So
gosh,
I do have the bird is the word is in the moment that they chose that is hilarious. It's like
that's amazing.
Kubrick is just like trying to fuck with us.
Yeah. I think I didn't appreciate him as much because I always think of like Quentin Tarantino as like this master of like pulling out music for certain scenes, but like Kubrick is right up there, and
he's
if not sometimes better.
Yeah. Editing, editing Kubrick. I don't know if he edits himself, but 95.
Yeah, 90 for me. I think the first chunk of the film in the barracks, boot camp, I would have given 100, but yeah.
Yeah, me too. But then that's what I was saying. Like it gets out of there and like it's not as good. The screenplay, I don't know if this is going to be a shocking play to you, but like the screenplay and the writing, I of course I loved, but I gave it an 85, which is my lowest score of all of this. I just felt like, again, the screenplay and the writing was terrific, and it's mostly reliant on one person at the
But the
very
story,
beginning, and the story itself after. I just feel like it. Look, I'm pulling. It's ridiculous, and I'm even saying this. It's absurd, but I just gave it an 85. I just felt like if something could be better, it could be this.
yeah, 85 for me as well. Funny that you said that. So it's the same thing. Like you almost, and this was my problem watching it earlier in my life, was like I was so geared up on the first part that the second part I just kind of really lost interest
It's
in.
2 movies. Yeah, exactly. It's 2 movies. Like the
Yeah.
first part, you're like, there's no war. They're not even going to, and then when they get to where you're like, kind of like you're breathing out, like let down to some extent,
Yeah.
because like it's so symmetrical, everything is perfect, and then like you get to war and like nothing is perfect, nothing. Like you got to kill the sniper, which I guess is real life. And anyway, directing, I gave it a 90, primarily to meld down like the reasons I said before this, but overall 91.5 for Full Metal Jacket, 93.5
Yeah,
for now.
my directing goes back to they filmed this whole thing in London, right?
Yeah.
All the work, like they had
It's
to
so weird,
import.
right? I looked into this.
It's weird because like after I watched Apocalypse Now first, and it's just green and luscious, and you feel like you're in the jungle. But here, like just seeing like the sparseness of palm trees, I was like, this is not Vietnam. And that's like,
Yeah.
I mean, they could have gone somewhere tropical. They could have done that, like filming in London with the gray skies, and it just didn't. And none of them were sweating as much as the people in Apocalypse Now. Like their faces were pretty just dry.
Yeah.
It just pulled me out of it. I mean, that kind of goes back to the directing thing of 90 for me.
Yeah, but this was definitely the toughest, but it made me be extreme, like really break down objectivity of like actually what is a better film. Kubrick is he's the best, hands down the best at like symmetry, framing, mise-en-scene, which is my like Asperger's desire. And also like being able to capture like emotions, I think slightly better, but like the everything else for Apocalypse Now is pretty much like supreme. I mean, it's, if we find a better film, I mean, I don't know how the comparison looks like already to the overall podcast episode so far, but like if we find a better film, I would love to watch it. I mean, it's one of the best movies of all time by far.
It's a psychedelic trip into,
and we got to come up with
madness.
like, say that again.
It's a psychedelic trip into madness. It's just it's haunting, it's visceral, it's jarring, and it's so many things, but that's what war is. And being like, talking about best films, best whatever, but the theme of this is Vietnam War films, and the war part of Full Metal Jacket was kind of a letdown, whereas Apocalypse Now, the war part, you lose yourself in it, and that's what makes the movie just a little bit higher on the echelon for me.
So the war part is of prime importance in Apocalypse Now, and it's like it's the initial point, it's a setting point, and you have different characters, and so you have everything is basically war, whereas there's a precursor to war and the transition to war, and then also like in war. And so I think Kubrick maybe could have chosen better moments to shoot the war itself or the war scenes happening, but like the transition was bad. And I mean bad in the sense of like one of the greatest, I mean honestly, it's like I love Full Metal Jacket. It's a fantastic film, but it could be better. And again, the P word. It's just like we're pulling. Anyway, I love this week. Next week is For You films.
Again,
We have
our little series where we send somebody a movie, or each of us a movie where they haven't seen it yet, and I'm excited to check it out.
So I actually had the idea that I'm going to provide to the old Steven. You haven't seen it, and I won't describe it, but I love the movie Perfume, but it's just a weird film, and maybe people don't like it, but it's a very strange, odd creature. And I said, what do you have for me? And he came up with Killer Joe. And so next week we're going to chit chat about that.
Again, and so Killer Joe, I haven't seen in 12 or 13 years when it got released in theaters. So very, very not fresh on my brain. Just a few things that I remember stick out in it. But it is directed by William Friedkin, who did The Exorcist. So I know that it's going to be good. We'll see. Let's end on this music here. How about that?